Morning. This is Trang Vo at the California ISO. Thank you for joining us for the Release User Group on April 1st, 2025. This call and webinar will be recorded and made available for a short time on the release planning page after the call. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so we'll start with the release plan summary, and we did have a little bit of shift in the 2025 implementations. So these have been reordered. I'll go down through the list and highlight some changes. So the next activation that we have for 2025 will be the highest emergency rating changes in OMS and Market and HANA. That's planned for April. And then we have at the end of April, the congestion revenue rights system upgrade hard cutover from April 28th through the 30th. You'll see that CPM enhancements track 1, which was planned for activation today, has shifted to activate on May 1st. So we did some last minute testing for that. And in order to give us new time for that implementation, we've shifted that out to May 1st. Our next release for the FERC Order 2023 Generator Interconnection Lifecycle, Release 2.3, is planned for May. We also have the Hybrid Resources Phase 2C RIM scope for the shapefiles specifically, and other RIM scope planned for May. FERC 881 is planned for implementation of Track 2 in July, and most notably, that's the availability of the WebLine R interfaces. And then we have another release for FERC Order 2023 in Q4 of this year. We have unwarranted storage BCR that is still in the implementation release plan for 2025, but we're working through defining and baselining that schedule for implementation. On to fall 2025, we have subscriber participating transmission owner model, and then the transmission exchange agreement full implementation. For spring of 2026, we have day-ahead market enhancements activation, extended day-ahead market activation, the EDAM ISO-BA participation rules activation, and then our EDAM onboarding of PAC, and then the WEIM onboarding of our 2 newest entities in May. For future releases, we have the WEIM FAB enhancements, and then the NGRs for physical trades, as well as TSMSP2 Track 4, and then a settlement upgrade project. You'll see that for the last item, the settlement upgrade project, I've queued up the next quarterly update mid-April. We have our next release user group in 2 weeks, and I'll aim to have an update by then if possible. All right, so I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. We have the BRS summary here. So we had the comment period close for the US BCR, the unwarranted storage BCR BRS. And then we have the EDAM version 1.4 BRS comment period that's open through April 11. We do have an upcoming DAME BRS revision to version 1.5, and that BRS is planned to publish on April 9, and the comment period will open then as well. And then we will also plan for our team to walk through the DAME BRS revisions at the next release user group on April 15, so I'll confirm that as well. Okay, all right. So we'll move on to the independent 2025 releases. Okay, for highest emergency rating, we have the market simulation that's continuing through the 3rd, and then that'll wrap up, and then we will activate in production between April 9th and 10th. So stay tuned for an announcement on the official activation date and time. Can you please go ahead?
Good morning, Trent. This is Chen Yu from PG&E. Yes, if you can go back to the last slide about the commenting tool. Just a quick question here. So you did mention something about April 15. I'm sorry, I missed that. What is that going to be on April 15?
Yeah, thank you. So April 15th is the next release user group where we will target for our team to present the day-ahead market enhancements BRS 1.5 revisions.
Okay, thank you. And also, a couple questions. So for the battery BCR, the unwarranted, do we know when is the CAISO going to respond to those comments, same as for EDAM comments? After we submit it, how long we have to wait for the response?
Let me confirm with the team. I know for the US BCR that might be a little bit more straightforward. So for EDAM though, as you know, that is a more complex implementation. And so depending on the nature of the comments that we get, we may need a little bit more time. You can also, I mean, I believe you're also aware too that we did extend the comment period for EDAM BRS 1.4 just because, again, we understand that that is just a more complex implementation with potentially more in-depth comments, and in turn, it may need more time to respond to those. But I'll confirm, and then I will see about including those expectations in this slide as well.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chanya. All right, so let me go ahead and move back. So are there any questions or comments on highest emergency rating? All right. We'll move on to our CRR upgrade. So I'll just go to the milestones. We had our last customer partnership group on March 20, and the next one will be April 17. And you'll see in the market simulation space that we did wrap up the official structured and unstructured formal market simulation as of March 27. However, as we communicated in the customer partnership group as well as the CRR market simulation meetings, for those that are looking for any additional support in the map stage environment for continued testing, please do submit a city case and reach out to marketsim@caiso.com for coordination and to send your request and details over, and we'll see if we can accommodate those requests for additional testing after the market simulation period. For production, we've been doing a lot of outreach here regarding the hard cutover because that could be pretty impactful for our CRR customers. And we appreciate all of the support that we've had in market simulation from our customers, as well as for the production acknowledgement of readiness for your organizations for that cutover. We are on track for the CRR cutover to the new upgraded CRR system April 28th through April 30. So there will be more communication about that as we get closer to that production date. Any questions or comments on CRR upgrade? All right. So the next other slides that I have here, actually, I don't have any other CRR reference slides, so we'll just move on to the next initiative, which is the CPM Enhancements Track 1. And you can see here that I've updated the production activation date to May 1st. Okay, you'll note again, we do not have a market simulation for this, but we do have the code in the map stage environment. And those that want to just take a look at the CRS system there, or Oasis, can take a look. And if you have any specific questions about testing, let us know. But we do not have a formal market simulation period for this. Okay. Any questions or comments on CPM Track 1? All right. FERC 2023. Generator interconnection lifecycle, our changes to the GRIP platform. So this is the only slide that I have on this. The milestones are included in the bottom section. So we had our last release 2.2 go in on March 18th. We have 2 more releases for this year, one in mid-May and then one in Q4. Any questions or comments here? All right. Okay. On to hybrid resources 2C for REMS. So here we can see in the milestones that we have had the training on March 5th. And then for the market simulation, so we'll clarify here, but the expectations are that we aren't going to have the entire environment for RIMS open for a traditional market simulation for the shapefile changes. However, if there are specific questions about that, please submit city cases and let us know how we can support you in reviewing the changes and being ready for production. And we are also looking at other ways to provide opportunities for support in lieu of opening up the formal market simulation for this, and including specific WebEx calls with the ISO SMEs to walk through some of the changes and specific readiness items. So more details to come on this, and I will update the slide on the market simulation expectations that we have here to just clarify, again, that this will not be a traditional market simulation, but more some production readiness support, I would say, and we'll go from there. All right, Valda, please unmute your line and go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Trang. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, I can.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah, my question is actually for CPM enhancements track 1. Sorry, I wasn't quick enough earlier, but I'm just curious, do you know what was the reason for the change of go live date from April to May?
Yeah, that's a great question. So so this is mostly internal changes, but due to the systems that were impacted, we also, as part of our regression, do some security testing and just other testing as well. And I think the short answer is that we had more testing than anticipated, or it went past when we would have liked testing to go past to allow us the time to fully prepare for production. And so because the gap between our finish of testing and the activation date of 4.1 was too short, we wanted to push out the activation just to give us time to go through and make sure that we had our buffer to do the rest of our readiness items, including letting customers know and getting the changes planned and implemented in production before the cutover. So it's just, I think, just the cascading effect of, longer than expected testing on our side.
Thank you. Thanks, Trang.
Thank you for the question. Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to, we have just supporting slides for hybrid resources 2C RIMS. I won't go through any of those because they haven't changed much. And we'll go to FERC 881 for managing transmission line ratings. Okay, so coming up this month, mid-April, is when we've requested a FERC response for 2 of our filings, one for the extension of time and then the second filing for additional tariff revisions. So hopefully by April 15th, we will get a response from FERC and have more clarity on our plans going forward for the remainder of this implementation. For the BRSs, we do have Track 1 and Track 2 BRSs still on the release planning page. We have had the Track 2 updates in the queue for some time, and those are are drafted and in review with legal on our side. So we're hoping to get the BRS Track 2 revision out this month as soon as possible. The market simulation continues for WebLine R, specifically the UI, and the API is on track to be made available for market simulation mid-April, and that will kick off the full market simulation for WebLine R. And then for production, Track 2 is on track for June 2025, and that will be making the WebLine R UI and API available for ratings to start being submitted. And then for Track 3, we have that phased implementation. Okay. So this is the same information just written out with additional detail. I won't go over that, but it's there for reference. And we've already presented this version of the timeline as of a couple of weeks ago. And it highlights, again, just the milestones that I mentioned earlier and nothing new to report here. Okay. I have additional supporting slides for Webline R that I also, and the 881 implementation that have been here, and I won't go over those in a lot of detail because we've already gone over that in the last release user groups. But I do want to pause here and just highlight again that last item is for Webline R. For the API, that is on track for mid-April. That's the only Webline R item to be made available in regards to interfaces on this slide. All right. Any questions or comments for FERC 881 or the Webline R system specifically? All right. So on to unwarranted storage BCR. All right, so for this one, again, we already have the FERC acceptance as of February for this, and we do have a market operations PRR that's upcoming, and a market simulation is planned for this, and then we'll obviously have the production implementation. So this one, we had the BRS available, and the comments period has been open, and I believe we extended it, and then now it's closed. But if you do have additional feedback for the BRS, please do let us know. For production, just a reminder that we are working on the implementation timeline for when the changes will go in, but regardless of when they go in, the changes will be retroactive to December 1st of 2024. So that's why you see two different dates there for production. Okay. Any questions or comments for unwarranted storage BCR? Okay. On to fall 2025 release. Again, not a lot of changes here as we focus on other initiatives. We are working to build out the schedule for subscriber participating transmission ownership model. Okay, so I want to talk through some things here is that, again, for the milestones that you see with this asterisk next to them, those are what our traditional annual fall targets would be for each of those deliverables for an October 1st activation, which is what we plan for subscriber PTO model. So the first thing that you'll see is that the settlements config guides would have been targeted for March, and we're past March right now. So I do want to share kind of the discussions internally and what we're thinking is that due to the significant settlements effort for DAME and EDAM that are also planning to start market simulation very soon, and then we have subscriber PTO model with settlements changes as well, to kind of break out the, and untangle those changes, we're planning or we're discussing splitting out subscriber PTO models implementation to have part of the implementation that doesn't affect settlements happen first, and then potentially having the settlements changes for this initiative go later, and hopefully that will minimize or decrease the burden on customers as well for testing all of those settlements changes and making all of those settlements changes while we're also doing the DAME and EDAM settlement changes and testing. So there will be more information about what that looks like, what that phasing looks like. Again, we are, continuously reviewing the schedule and our strategy for implementing this, but all that to say that there will be an implementation for subscriber PTO model planned for this year. However, it may be phased, and that may be the first of at least a couple phases for this scope. Okay, Felda, please go ahead.
Yes, Trang, with the new initiative that's being expedited, the EDAM congestion revenue allocation, so will that be impacting any of at least the last two initiatives that you've just gone over, whether it's the subscriber participating transmission ownership or the unwarranted storage BCR? Would that impact the timeline for the implementations of either one of these?
So I think at this point, it may be a little bit too soon to tell. I think that in terms of, we would have to look at what comes out of the stakeholder meeting and the board meeting ultimately for the the expedited CRR stakeholder process. And then based on what comes out of those discussions, we also have to do an assessment again on just at even a system level, what those changes would be, and then kind of look at those different work streams and see if those are shared or impacted by those other two projects, subscriber PTO model and unmonitored storage BCR, and then make an assessment almost at a system level when it comes to implementation. So, so it's too early to say, but I will. I know that the scope for unmonitored storage BCR is a little bit more narrow, and so we'll have to take another look and kind of work alongside the stakeholder process for that assessment. So I will continue to keep you updated on any impacts that we do see, but I think it's too early to tell at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for raising that question too. I think it's good to touch on that, even though we're not in the implementation time for that CRR stakeholder initiative yet. But we will be keeping an eye on that and then looping that into the conversation. Thanks, Hilda. Chenyu, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the transparency for the SPTO, the splitting, the implementation. So at this point, shall we go ahead, review the BRS, or is that, because I'm thinking when you split, you're probably going to kind of put in the BRS, which one is a phase 1, which one is phase 2, or is it strictly just anything settlement? Sorry, we can treat it for the future implementation, or later implementation. Just want to know so we can, because our team start to schedule the SPTO BRS review. Just wonder if there's going to be a revision and the new timeline we shall be waiting for a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it's a really delicate situation because I know that a lot of organizations are also have a lot of focus on DAME and EDAM, and so I will be really careful about giving you direction one way or the other about reviewing the BRS, and then being aware that it could impact your team's effort on DAME and EDAM, which I don't want to do either. So I think that the two things that I can offer you is talking to my team and then just getting clarity on one, that we have certainty on the phasing, and then two, if that means that all of these settlements requirements in the external BRS will definitely be deferred. So I can give you certainty on those two things and offline, and then I will allow you to make the decision and assess that with your team to see what makes the most sense for you. Would that help?
Yeah, yes. I think another thing is whether they're going to be a BRS revision to separate those.
Yeah.
So, okay, I hope to learn those updates soon. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I have those 3 items on my list to check, and then I will also update the rest of the team too. I'll see if I can incorporate that or update everyone else at the next RUG on the BRS, on the implementation split. And if that translates into all of the settlements BRQs being moved out, and then if there will be a BRS revision and by when. So, okay. And then that'll help inform the decision. We can continue to discuss that further. Okay. Thank you. All right. Great. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay. Transmission exchange agreement. This is a familiar implementation that we've had on our radar for a while. So we continue to work directly with WAPA for some other testing in the market simulation environment, and for their full implementations market simulation that is planned for July, and then the activation October 2025. So we'll continue to communicate this in the market simulation call, as Martin is already doing, for that opportunity to participate in July or observe in that testing, and then for the production activation in October. Any questions or comments on this? Mike, please go ahead.
Everyone, this is Mike Whitney with NCPA. I guess there's a market sim taking place right now.
Mhm.
We're a partner with Western. Is there any way we can participate in that as well?
Yeah, so I would open this up to Martin, who is on the call, to shed some light into that effort and your request. And Martin, please unmute your line, and can you respond to Mike? And if not, we can also have that discussion with him directly offline.
Hey, Trang, thanks for that question, Mike. Yeah, my understanding is, as Trang pointed out, that the project team has been working with WAPA to do the market sim directly, and the current market sim that's ongoing is specifically for the new aggregate tie that was being added. But for the scope that's relevant for the TEA BRS in terms of that full functionality, that's going to be that later market sim. I believe that's July of this year. And I did also confirm that one is currently being reserved exclusively for WAPA, but maybe that's something we can take back to the project team and see if there's insight on different entities participating in that as well.
Okay, because Western's telling us that we're going to be able to schedule our TOR and CRN in May. So, and so there was, Kaiso did open up a market sim for the TEA. I think it was earlier this year, or maybe it was the end of last year. And we were able to submit the TOR and CRNs in cyber, but then it kind of crashed out and didn't publish any awards in CMRI or publish any of the planned settlement statements. So, so yeah, maybe you could go back and see if you can open up MapStage for us to start testing out those TORs, or if you don't think we're going to be able to schedule those in May, then we can take that back to WAPA.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for that, Mike. I'll follow up on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for the additional context, too. It sounds like you've been working directly with WAPA also, and so we'll get some more clarity about that, because in terms of the environment in general, it is open, but I think that if there's a desire to coordinate with and leverage some of those statements and testing that WAPA is already doing, then maybe we can just coordinate that and work on the timing. So. Okay, so we'll have Martin check with the project team and reach out to you, Mike.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Martin, too. Okay, so we'll go on to spring 2026. All right, so we have the timeline, no changes to this. So one thing that I will note is that, so it's April 1st. And then for the Pacific Core onboarding, what you don't see on this timeline is May 1st is the start of the connectivity for our PAC EDAM onboarding in the MapStage environment. And then that'll happen for a month. And this timeline starts June 1st. And you'll see that June 1st is the start. So 2 months from today will be the start of, and I actually believe it's the second because the first might be a weekend, but that will start the EDAM onboarding integration testing, which for other implementations, we also consider that connectivity testing. So it's basically an expectation that the interfaces for DAM and EDAM will be available in MapStage for testing starting 6/1. So we'll have more information coming before the June 1st date to confirm what is available for testing in MapStage and kind of the level of testing in terms of what interfaces are available, and then again the expectations for data, the presence of data, and versus the quality and such. And so that will be picking up very soon. So you'll get more and more information and details on the MapStage testing for DAM and EDAM in the next couple months leading up to June 1st. Okay, so that's all I wanted to call out on this timeline for today. And then I'll go on to the training overview for spring 2026, the EDAM and DAME program. So you'll see we kick off in June 2025 an EDAM onboarding specific train the trainer series or sessions. And then in August, prior to the start of the formal market simulation, the structured and unstructured scenarios, we will have the pre-market simulation training as we do for other implementations. So that's August 18, 19, and 20 for the three. So for DAME overall, and then DAME settlements specifically, and then for the EDAM implementation. And then because we're having the market sim so, a lot further in advance than we typically do, and then the training, then we are going to reserve time for refresher trainings for DAME and the EDAM ISO participation rules prior to go live. So that's planned for April 2026. And that'll just incorporate any new information, and then also just kind of refresh everyone on that functionality. Okay. Any questions or comments on this? Okay. So let's move on for settlements. So for settlements, we have a lot of great material out there that's on the release planning page. We published the DAME and EDAM charge code change summary, and we also published last month a mapping for the charge code to tariff section. And so that's not on here, but please do take a look at that. That was announced by the settlements team. They did communicate that out. And then on April 29, we have the first DAME and EDAM config output file scheduled. Okay. And then let's see. I'm going to go back to the message in the chat. So Stanley is asking if the ISO has a target on when the details can be provided on what servers and data will be available on 5.1 and throughout May for connectivity, and that will help. Okay, so Stanley, I will, I know that's typically maybe something more reserved for the talk of the market sim call, but because I want to make sure that everybody has information, what I'll do is I'll queue that up for April 15th, either an update or kind of, the starting of that framework of what we're expecting to be available. So we can always build on it, but let's say by the rug, I'll have some more information. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stanley. I'm just making a note here. All right, great. Okay. So I'll move on to the DAME slide specifically. So for this slide, you'll see just an update that BRS version 1.5 is planned for April 9, and then we'll open up a comment period for that, and then also plan to come to the RUG on April 15 to give an overview of those changes. So I think at a high level for the BRS 1.5, we do have changes, I believe, for adding CRN information into CMRI, and then we also have some revisions for import-export for RCU, RCD bid insertion and must-offer obligation, and then proxy RCU bids for export system resources. So those are a few of the categories that you can anticipate for changes and revisions in BRS 1.5. But of course, once that's published, you can look at that in more detail on the 9th, and then tune into the RUG on April 15 for our team to go over those changes as well. Okay. And then for upcoming milestones, again, for April 29, we have that settlements milestone of the first config output file, and that milestone is shared between DAME, EDAM, and EDAM ISO BA participation rules. And then by July of this year, we will have the PRRs for these three initiatives as well. And then for configurable parameters in August, we will have an implementation working group kickoff, and that will be after the start of market simulation, where the initial values will be set for the configurable parameters. And then we have the market simulation that I talked through the schedule for earlier, or that's in the timeline, starting in September. And then the production deployment by February, and then the activation May 1st of 2026. So one other update is on the timeline here. No changes to the timeline except for the today marker. I've been presenting this, but we hadn't updated the today marker, so you can see now that we're in the beginning of April. So we still have 2 months before the August kickoff. So that'll be the next opportunity to engage for the configurable parameters effort. And then you can see that we kind of ramp up the communication there. Starting October, we'll have a monthly checkpoint to review the analysis that we will do with the data in market simulation and in parallel operations. And I have additional supporting. Oh, go ahead, Chun-Yu, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Trinh. I have a few questions. So first, I heard, right, I heard a couple times you mentioned that ISO market participants shall be able to participate in the parallel operations. So I hope that can be also incorporated into the plan or the milestone. The second thing, I'm just trying to observe the some of the configuration input as when was the update and when it's going to be applied. So look like during the settlement, during the market sim, also going to gain some insight into those configuration parameters changes, and then it will be using those as a part of the parallel operations. So if we still have the day as, sorry, I'm all over the place. If we still have the day as implement those codes into production no later than February, I think it might be a little bit too early, because I believe the parallel operations is going to be ended in March or something. So just want to point out that when I started this plan, just thinking the code deployment to production might be a little bit too early before the parallel operation conclude.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm sorry I was jumping around on the slides. I was trying to figure out the best place to illustrate my response to you. Okay, so in this timeline, you can see that market simulation and parallel operations activities are in the gold, and then the configurable parameters, tuning, and analysis is in the blue. So starting for the market simulation in September, we will have initial values set for the configurable parameters, and those are the ones that were already discussed in the stakeholder process. And then those will be the values that are set for market simulation while we execute the separate, but effort for DAME market simulation will also be doing the analysis on the configurable parameter, the values on that. So that will happen, and then you'll see that in parallel operations, that parallel operation starts in January 26th. And I do want to just acknowledge and confirm that, yes, our expectation is that the parallel operations will be open to that ISO BA as well, because because ISO is also becoming an EDAM. And so we can incorporate that into the milestones, as you mentioned, just to have that be clear. I know Martin is also going to work on calling that out in the parallel operations revisions that he's doing, the plan revisions. So we'll set the values for market simulation. We'll analyze those, and then we will tune them as appropriate. And then prior to parallel operations, we will set the values of those configurable parameters in the stage environment. And then we will do that analysis through the parallel operations period, and then have the final values for production. So I do want to distinguish that while we do plan to deploy the code to production by February 1st, that code will not be active, and so there is still time and so to tune the values and decide on the final values for production prior to May 1st. So they just need to be available and in production prior to the first effective date. And so I would even say that for May 1st effective date, we would back up. And then, you know, if the horizon opens 7 days before May 1st for the day ahead submissions, then we would likely need to set them, you know, even over a week prior to that. So I would say mid-April of 2026 is what our target would be, and kind of the more realistic deadline for having those values. Now, I know part of that discussion is that there are some other parameters that might need to be in PRR or BPMs, and I don't recall the tariff implications of any of these as well, so I'll go back and look at that, but that will also kind of be a factor in our lead time for setting those values in production. So I'm glad you brought that up, because these are things that we have been thinking about, but we haven't touched on them in a while, just because we're focused on getting market simulation started. But those are things that we're thinking right now. Okay.
Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Chenyu. No, I'm glad that, you know, we're also looking ahead, because it's good to do that every once in a while we're so in the weeds right now, getting ready for market sim. So thank you. All right. So let's go ahead. So these are supporting slides that just kind of cover what I explained before, and you know, they're here and they haven't changed for some time. And then again, we will have more substantial discussions kicking off starting August again of this year, but we welcome any questions, you know, along the way. All right, we'll go on to EDAM right now. And so for EDAM, one moment. So for EDAM, we did post BRS version 1.4, and the comment period is open now through the 11th, and then I will get some clarity on when to expect responses to those comments. And then for the tech specs for both DAME and EDAM, I did mention that we have had previous revisions, and I do refer you to the technical user group presentations and meetings, and then as well as the dev site for all of the latest on tech specs and artifacts. And then some of that information as far as the tech specs, that will kind of lead into Stanley's question about what will be available in MapStage May 1st versus June 1st, and in terms of interfaces and data. And for upcoming milestones, these share the same upcoming milestones with DAME, which is the settlements config, first config output file, April 29. We have BPM PRRs by July 1st. And then the market simulation will be June, and parallel operations you see listed here with the updated plan to be provided. And then we'll also add the parallel operations to clarification for the ISO-BA. And then for production, you see the onboarding entities that are coming on May 1st, October 1st, and then in 2027. Any questions or comments for EDAM? All right. And I'm sorry, I have these slides for the last EDAM BRS revisions, but those are, we've already gone through those, so they stay there for reference. And then for one moment. Okay, sorry about that. And then we have the EDAM ISO-BA participation rules that, again, share the same milestones with the settlement config, first config output file coming April 29, and then it shares, again, the PRR BPMs for the BPM changes. and then the market simulation timeline and activation. So on this one is, I think, where it's appropriate to add the parallel operations milestone here. And so, so that's what we'll do, is include that for the ISO BAA. All right, any questions on this initiative? All right, and we have WEIM implementation for BHEM Montana and WEIM Black Hills. That's planned for spring of 2026 activation with the market simulation starting in December. Chenyu, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I reviewed the EDAM from 2 system integration. I just have a general question in terms of the services. For example, for cyber, it's referenced to cyber version somewhere from 1 to 5. So I'm just very curious, why would be that? If it's existing, I understand, but when it's modified and new, why would be still cyber version 1 or 5? Maybe it's something that I can take to the technical call.
Yeah, so Chenyu, I'll take a look at that myself too, and then I'll see if I can provide some clarity on that. I know that just for major services, as you know, we support 2 major versions, and and so so it, you know, if it's a version 5, it should be 4 or 5, and then you know, I know that I haven't brought the interface change summary here for some time, but that's so I kind of know, I think I know the nature of your question, but I'll take a look at that myself, and then yes, I will be on the next TOG as well. So if you want to send that question offline to me, I can coordinate and get that answer, and I'll be on the technical user group to provide some guidance there as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. All right. Okay, so for future releases, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this as there aren't any updates, but I will just touch on what's there. Is we have the remaining enhancement for WEIM, which is Dynamic EPSR Limit Safety Net. And when I say remaining, I just mean remaining in terms of the BRF that is available on the release planning page. And so we're still working through a timeline for that. Okay. And then for enabling NGRs for physical trades, again, this is something that's in our queue that we don't have a timeline on, so we are still moving forward with this, but we're working around other implementations that impact cyber, namely DAME and EDAM, to figure out the best timing for this implementation. So I'll go on to settlement upgrade. I mentioned earlier that by the next release user group, April 15th, I'll try to have an update. I don't have an additional update now. This implementation for settlement upgrade, as I mentioned before, will be after DAME and EDAM, but we're specifying the schedule. So at this time, I'm anticipating no earlier than 2027, and then, you know, we'll work to communicate a rebaseline schedule as soon as we can. Right? So that is all that I have for the next release user group. That's April 15th. So 3 items that I've kind of committed to high level that I wanted to focus on April 15th. One is going to be the DAME BRS revision 1.5. Secondly, we'll be providing some guidance on the market simulation activities for DAME and EDAM starting May 1st, kind of what will be available in map stage and what the expectations are for data. And then third is getting a settlement upgrade update if possible. Okay. And then if there are other items that folks have, please do let me know. You can send me an email or and to reach out. And then I see Jean had a question about OASIS. So for the OASIS changes, let me pull up the latest. Okay, so we've been also, I didn't have slides for it, but we've been talking about, and we have been communicating the OASIS changes for the change from HTTP to HTTPS. And that one is scheduled for this afternoon from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific. Okay, Jean, thank you for asking. All right, and then just as a heads up too, the other CMRI change, which should be more transparent, is planned for April 9. Okay, can you please go ahead?
Yeah, okay, last question. I know in last call, maybe MPPF, some market participants expressed the interest to learn more about the changes for EDM 1.4 since the changes was significant. Just wonder if, and I think the request was like one CAISO to go in depth of those changes, the reason for change, and I wonder if that is still in the work that CAISO was scheduled in our session just to go over those changes before April 11, because we're thinking that will be also helpful. And if we have any comments, we can probably submit it in the April 11 comment. Just a question.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that at this point, I would encourage you to submit the comments that you have by April 11. And then what I think might be good is that if we can maybe combine our responses to the comments as well as, a more in-depth walkthrough of those changes in one session. So again, adding to the comment that was raised in the MPPF, if there are specific areas that your organization would like us to do a deep dive into in terms of the EDM BRS 1.4 revision, also outline those in the comments so that our team can be prepared to go into more detail about that. That'll help guide that discussion. And then also, like I said, if there are other comments that we have, we can plan to respond to those as well in one session. So
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, then that is all that I have for today. Thank you all for joining. Are there any final questions or comments? All right, I look forward to talking to you all again. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.